What is up, everybody? Wednesday is here, which means a new summit is now live on the Crew 2. And what's kind of insane is the fact that this is the last summit until the next season here on the game. It's kind of crazy how fast time goes, but nonetheless, though, we have the Ice Crown here, which is going to give us the legendary half set boosted for the touring car class. So at least they did end up fixing the affix it stats on that one, so it will definitely be worth going after that set now. And then moving over to this week's Platinum Reward is going to be the Science Spangled Nitro, which I would say does look pretty awesome for being a Nitro. I will have to see how this one is going to look because sometimes they can kind of get in the way depending on the vehicle you might be running, but at least this one's going to have a lot of detail to it. And now moving over to the Ice Crown Summit here, so if you guys are a fan of the ice tracks, I would say you're probably going to like this summit. If you're not really liking the ice tracks all that much, you might not end up liking this one, but jumping right into this though, so starting off with the Speedtrap here, you already know what car I probably ran is going to be the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. I do want to mention, by the way, guys, that drag cars can only go so fast by yourself. So if you are running the Corvette Stingray, for example, this car does around 413 miles an hour. The fastest drag car in the game is going to be the Inferno. That car does like 417 or so. But if you guys do want to get like 430 plus or something like that, you will have to unfortunately slipstream somebody. And then moving over to the next skill is going to be a low altitude. I always found these to be really fun to do. I did end up running the Zivko Edge 540 and I pretty much turned around and then hit the objective and followed the road the entire time. I would say you could probably run the Harmon Rocket is also a really good plane for this. Luckily, the low altitudes are going to be pretty simple because you basically can jump onto the road on many of them and just go as fast as you possibly can, of course watching out for the crazy pedestrians along the way. And then moving over to the last skill is going to be a slalom. So for this one, I did end up using the Ford Fiesta once again. I really don't know why I like this car so much, but I also did use the Ford Fiesta in one of the events as well. I just find this car to be really fun and also really good, but if you guys want the most speed out of this one, you're probably going to want to run a rally raid vehicle. My friend also ran a hypercar, and then my other friend ran a street car, and they still got a pretty dang good score. So I would say you could probably run any vehicle of your choice, but if you're looking for the most speed possible, you're going to want to aim toward the rally raid class. But now moving over to the first event is going to be a street race. So as I did mention before, every single event in this summit is going to be on an ice track. So do keep in mind, guys, you're probably going to be sliding all over the place in these forced vehicles. For the first one is going to be a street race, as I did mention before, and you do get to drive the Lamborghini Huracan. I would say if you guys could jump into this event with some people, you could probably get a higher score because the car is going to be faster. Unfortunately, with the vehicles being forced, they're all going to be base level, so there's really only so fast you can go with them, but you also don't have to go too insane with this summit because I don't think it's going to be as intense as the previous one because everybody definitely wanted that Aston Martin, but for this one I would recommend trying manual and trying to keep the gearing lower on the vehicle and definitely try to slow down on some of the turns. I would say that could probably go for most of the races in this one, including the hypercar here where you actually get to drive the Koenigsegg Jesko and or the Jesko. Not really sure how you actually pronounce that car, but I would say this one's going to be pretty fun to do as well. But again, the car is going to be base level, so it's not going to be all that fast. But I also found the Koenigsegg to be pretty quick for the most part, and luckily this car is definitely something I might have to take another look at. I'm not going to lie, I really haven't used the Koenigsegg all that much recently, but from this event I would say it's pretty dang good for the most part. And then moving over to the next event is going to be another street race. Now the best part about the next three races here on the bottom, the rallycross and the touring car, is you do get to drive your own car on these. So for this one you do get to run the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, which honestly I would say this car did a lot better than I initially thought it was going to. And not only that, the Aston Martin does seem to be a pretty decent street car, but I would say many of the street cars in the game most likely fall into that pit because we have things like the Lamborghini that are most likely going to destroy them in every way. But moving over to the next event is going to be a rallycross one. So for this one, I did end up running the Ford Fiesta once again, which I'm not going to lie, guys, is probably not the best car for this. The Cadillac Enforcer unit is probably going to be the best overall vehicle to run because of the way that car can handle. The Ford Fiesta is pretty good, but the Cadillac really is going to be like top tier when it comes to handling. I would say the Ford Fiesta might end up struggling just a little bit with the way it handles, but luckily I would say you could pretty much do really good with any of the vehicles you choose, because regardless of it, I would definitely pick something that's all-wheel drive, especially in the ice here. But moving over to the next event is going to be with the Ferrari FXXK. This is probably one of my favorite cars I've ever used on Drive Club, so seeing it on the Crew 2 is definitely pretty sweet. I've also heard this car is going to be on Need for Speed as well, but the Ferrari honestly did a lot better than I thought it was going to. I really thought this car was going to struggle, but compared to most of the other events in this summit, I think the Ferrari was probably one of the best cars to drive. It seemed to handle the ice really well, and it didn't really struggle all that much. It also didn't seem as fidgety as some of the other cars do, which I definitely think is going to be a nice touch with it. But moving over to the last event in the summit is going to be a hypercar event, mixed with one of the Dominion Frozen races once again, so this is obviously going to be an ice race. And you will also have to use the Bugatti Divo on this event as well, so I would say a lot of people are probably not going to like this car all that much on this event. Luckily, I would say it's not going to be the worst thing to drive, but definitely not the best with all the turns in this one. I would say the best thing is to keep the speed down around the turns a little bit. That way you don't slide around the entire turn, because that will end up causing you to lose a ton of speed. And losing a ton of speed on some of the turns in the ice tracks is probably going to be pretty easy to do, because once the car starts drifting, there's really not all that much you can do. But besides that, guys, I would say this summit is pretty fun. If you're not a huge fan of the ice tracks, I don't know if you're really going to like this summit, to be honest, because, well, the entire thing is basically racing on the ice and sliding all over the place, but this is definitely one way to end the season out. I cannot wait to see what the next one has in store for us. But if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this summit.